दही बड़ा खाने का मन है।
वाह क्या स्वाद!
असली स्वाद तो MDH दही बड़ा रायता मसाले से ही आता है।
Hello and welcome. You're watching the Monday edition of This Is Exclusive with me, Shavin Sen. In his final moments, 28-year-old pilot Lieutenant Siddharth Yadav, who belonged to Haryana's Rewari, made a split-second decision that saved countless lives. Now, as the aircraft that went down, the pilot heroically steered it away from a densely populated area, preventing a larger disaster. Not only this, he also ensured his co-pilot's safety by ejecting him first before sacrificing his own life. But this story isn't just about that. It's about the larger questions we are asking on the aging aircraft of the Indian Air Force, the Jaguar. It's about that aircraft which the young and brave Siddharth Yadav was flying before it went down. It's about the 30+ accidents that have happened since 2017. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the story.
सिद्धार्थ यादव का नाम रहेगा। शूरवीरों में अति शूरवीर सिद्धार्थ यादव हमारे। शूरवीरों में अति शूरवीर सिद्धार्थ यादव हमारे।
Ladies and gentlemen, a scathing report by the Comptroller and Auditor General from 2017 and 2019 highlights serious issues in India's defense aviation, particularly the absence of aeropilot systems in the Jaguar aircraft. Now, according to this particular report that we have accessed, only 35 out of the 108 Jaguars in service are equipped with autopilots, severely impacting operational efficiency. The report also sheds light on the inordinate delays and red tape surrounding the integration of autopilot systems. What we're going to show to you, ladies and gentlemen, right now is report number 1, which puts out details of what has gone wrong with this aging aircraft of Jaguar, which was procured from the United Kingdom. Even countries like UK, France, Nigeria, Oman, all the countries who've been using Jaguar have phased it out. Now, this report puts the spotlight on what's really wrong. Let's take you to the first big breaking news now coming in from CAG report number 1. What is it that this report talks about? The Jaguars. It says 2017 audit report pointed out delays in autopilot procurement as well as installation. We'll hold on to this. The autopilot in the Jaguars are essentially a safety measure, and this safety measure is no longer there. 35 of them of the 108 Jaguars are fitted with this. Report mentions impact of reduced operational efficiency. The fact that autopilot installation is not there in the Jaguar means that the operational efficiency is down. This is what this report says. Next, maintenance and serviceability issues. Inadequate upkeep of the IL series aircrafts mirrored in Jaguar fleet challenges. So you have the IL series here and the Jaguar. Both have the same problem. The fact is with regards to the maintenance. Now, there are serious security gaps at the air bases. This is what the report says. Non-functional under-vehicle scanning system in place which compromises base security. Again, this is an allied issue. Not exactly related, but it's an allied issue which finds a mention in this report. There are systemic failures, issues in procurement, maintenance and infrastructure stalling modernization. Now, this is what the CAG says as far as the defense acquisition plans are concerned. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is the reason why our aircrafts have been going down. The fact that it hasn't gone through service maintenance. Let's take you through the other details we are picking up. This, ladies and gentlemen, is with regards to the number of years that these aircrafts have spent. 40 plus years in service. These are aging airframes. Let's quickly take you through the other details coming in. Structural fatigue limits further upgrades. So there aren't enough upgrades that are actually happening with most of these aircrafts. Now, here, reduced payload and performance. That means underpowered engines which are now being used. All finds are mentioned in the report that we have accessed. Now, let's take you through the others. Re-engineering stalled by high cost and complexity. So you cannot perhaps really bring in the much needed change in the engine and the thrust that one could give to these engines that are being used. Let's take you through the other details that we're picking up from the report. No stealth features. So you have outdated technology. Now, there are certain advantages that these aircraft have, but at the same time, it is now being used as just routine sorties, training aircrafts. Falls shorter versus modern fighter standards. Now, most of these modern fighter jets are well equipped when it comes to the autopilots and several other safety measures. Those measures cannot be fitted in these aircrafts now. Upgrade funds clash with new aircraft procurement. I'll get into the details of this with the second breaking news now coming in, the other big report, the CAG report, which talks about the entire mechanism of how they are procured, how the aircrafts are procured and how it is completely stalled, and it is not limited to the Jaguar aircraft. Forecast tough prioritization. There are budgetary constraints too, and that is the reason why you'll see much of these upgrades not happening as per this report. Let's quickly move on to the others. Now, let me take you through the other breaking news now coming in. This is with regards to the second report that we have accessed, and this report, ladies and gentlemen, has not been made public. The reason being is this. Here you have the report clearly stating that the defense acquisition system in the country is fraught with what they are calling an inordinate delay and inefficiency. I'm quoting from the CAG report, and this report has not been made public. They go on to say that the entire system was not geared to assure value for money, air assets that were acquired of the required quality at the optimum price and within the given time. It's a scathing report which talks about the entire acquisition process. Now, let me just quickly take you through the second report that has been accessed, which has not been made public. And I'll tell you why it has not been made public, because you have scathing remarks being made by the auditor with regards to the defense acquisition process itself. It says significant delays in initiating replacement of air assets. This compromises the air power of our country. Next, this is after the delay in the procurement proposal, and here they make a mention of the evaluation of technical and commercial bids, which, according to this report, it says it does not demonstrate consistency, objectivity, and fair play in selection. Now, here, new systems that are delivered after expiry of the existing assets. That's because by the time they are essentially preparing their RFP, it goes into another stage of delay. They say hangars, buildings for basic trainer aircrafts not completed even 5 years after the receipt of aircraft. So you have the allied infrastructure also compromised heavily. And this is what the auditors say. No assurance that the products that are acquired met user standards. Now, this is after you have the auditor going through the entire process of acquisition of the Chinooks, the entire process of the MMRCA, and various other assets that were brought in. Air staff quality requirements, ASQR, not met during the evaluation. I'll just quickly explain. Now, this is something that is prepared by the Indian Air Force whenever there is an procurement policy. They say that it has been done in such a manner that most of the vendors, a good percentage of the vendors, do not even qualify for this ASQR. ASQRs modified multiple times without recorded reason. They say that this is the reason why essentially most of the vendors cannot even qualify. System of the vendor identification heavily scrutinized. Now, there's a weak vendor database is what the CAG essentially indicates. Let's take you through the others. Air headquarters didn't maintain any vendor database. Now, this is, again, a finding of the auditor of our country saying that the air headquarters are not maintaining the vendor database. If maintained database not made available to the audit by the ministry. Now here comes the caveat that the auditor says that they have not been provided with the details by the ministry itself. Now is it because of some sort of a national security concern? That is something that is not known. Now let's take you to the third big breaking news coming in tonight on This Is Exclusive. Now, there are massive delays in signing of the contracts. Now, we'll take you through the details of the contracts that we are talking about. Now, the report confirms there are delays, massive delays in the acquisition of air assets. If I can just take you through the list that has been put out by the auditor, which looks into some of the key acquisition that has been made, starting with the Apache to the LCA, and a few others that they've made a mention in this particular report, which goes on to indicate that there is a considerable delay. Some going into 110 months. That's the long period that you're looking at as far as the delay is concerned. Report 2 of the CAG basically makes a mention of them. There are delays that we are looking right now. Let me just put this out on your screens. Now, this will give you an understanding of the number of air assets which have been delayed over a period of time. Let's put that out. In fact, this is the CAG report number 2. And this report, ladies and gentlemen, has not been made public. Let's take you through the findings of the number of assets. These are some of the assets and the delay in signing the contract. Now, this is as per the CAG report. The CAG report says that our attack helicopters, the delay in contract signing was only about 105 months. 105 months is the delay when it comes to getting attack helicopters of our country. Let's move on to the next. Heavy lift helicopters. The delay in signing the contract was 113 months. That's the time it has taken to actually sign a contract to get the heavy lift aircrafts. Basic trainer aircraft, the delay in signing the contract is for about 36 months. Let's take you through the other assets that they made the mention. MA missiles. Now, these MA missiles also, there has been an inordinate delay of about 74. If this is supposed to be fitted in several of our fighter aircrafts. WW ammunition, there has been, once again, a delay of about 94 months in signing the contracts and bringing in. Doppler weather radar. Now, this is, again, important, keeping in mind that the weather conditions that most of these aircrafts operate, and you need the radar system to be in place. Now, there has been a delay in that too, about 96 months delay as far as bringing in the Doppler weather radar. Now, this, ladies and gentlemen, does not end here. The PP pods, which are basically fixed to the rear end of the aircrafts, there too there has been a delay in signing the contract. About 76 months it has taken to bring in. Additional C-130J-30 aircraft. Now, these are the heavy lift transport vehicles which are basically used. The air asset here too, there is a delay in signing the contract. 36 months, that's the delay in bringing in our C-130. The recce systems, there the delay has been about 54 months. Just take a look at the list, and the list just does not end here. The CAG has maintained this, and it says the full mission simulators have also been delayed, and the delay is about 48 months just to sign the contract. This is the first step. Now, this is the first step that are coming in, and there has been a considerable delay on that. Now, where does the HAL really come into the picture? Now, before we go into the first question that we are putting out right now, it's important to point out here. The Indian Air Force cannot perhaps phase out most of these aircraft unless the phased out mission or the process is completed, which would essentially mean that the HAL submits their proposals and also follows the deadline. Now, why justify the engines in airframes unfit for high-altitude combat zones? The third question that HAL must answer, how many Jaguars are fully upgraded and operational? Because as per the audit report, it seems that only 35 of the 108 have even autopilots. What is HAL's plan to fix the broken logistics here? Because clearly, unless they are refitted, unless they're modernized, one cannot really continue with these aircrafts. Why continue investing in Jaguars when Tejas and Rafale they offer better? Now, these are some of the questions that even the Air Force chief had raised. In fact, the final question that we are also putting out, why no judicial probe into delays in acquiring autopilot systems? These are the questions that the HAL must answer, because unless HAL really provides with an alternative, there is no way that this can be phased out. In fact, ladies and gentlemen, most of the aircraft that we are talking about, particularly the Jaguar, has been phased out by countries like the United Kingdom, France, Oman, Nigeria. In fact, we spoke to one of the trainer pilots with the Royal Air Force who had played an instrumental role in training Indian fighter pilots. We asked him as to how exactly was it phased out in UK and what does it mean with Indian Air Force still continuing to use it. The Jaguar aircraft was also procured by the United Kingdom back in 1960, was also used by a few other countries. It has been phased out in many countries, but still being used here in India. Joining us is a former pilot serving with the Royal Air Force in United Kingdom, Mr. Tim Davis. Thank you very much for speaking to Republic TV. This was an aircraft which was also used by the United Kingdom, phased out after a point in time. In fact, a few other countries along with India was actually using it. Could you help us understand why exactly did the United Kingdom really phase this out and what was the issue?
Yes, absolutely. Good to be here. The Jaguar, we flew for a long time in the UK, about 34 years. So really, we did a lot with that aircraft. It was a low-level strike attack aircraft used in a similar way to the way India also uses its aircraft. But we did find that obviously better aircraft were coming on stream, such as the Tornado GL4 that I flew, that was already in service, and also the Typhoon, which of course had more powerful engines, updated avionics, and of course it could carry more fuel and weaponry. So the Jaguar became a little bit redundant, and of course we phased it out after quite an extensive service.
Mr. Davis, you're saying that there were certain issues. Could you help us understand what are the issues that you were speaking about? And if at all this was being utilized by the other air forces, what were the reasons for it?
Yes, so obviously it was a single seat. Primarily single-seat, low-level strike attack aircraft. Had a very small wing, you see, it was one of the issues, and it was primarily designed as a flying training aircraft. But that proved very difficult for the students. Now, I trained a lot of Indian students in the Royal Air Force, very good pilots, all of them, and we sent them back onto aircraft such as the MiG-21 and the Jaguar. And the problem that we had is that some of those students were killed. The aircraft is a difficult aircraft to fly. It does take quite a lot of talent and a very good pilot to operate it. And the newer aircraft were much easier to fly with fly-by-wire systems and flight control systems. So really, the Royal Air Force, it did have some accidents with the aircraft. It couldn't carry as many bombs as other airplanes, and it couldn't also carry as much fuel. So these legacy aircraft pretty much just went by the wayside as newer aircraft came in and replaced them.
How do you really look at the fact that it was still being utilized by several air forces, including the Indian Air Force, and the fact that some would argue that certain modernizations that were brought in actually helped this aircraft to be used longer?
Yes, of course. And we looked at the Honeywell engine upgrade that you were doing for your aircraft and now being cancelled back in 2019, I believe, a very expensive upgrade. You have to take on the whole maintenance package. But even if you were to replace avionics and you were to replace engines, you've still got the problem with the fatigue levels on the overall airframe. There's only so much of an aircraft you can replace. And eventually you have to limit what that aircraft can do, how many Gs it can do, or how fast it can go. And that's when you start getting into costs such as replacing bits that are very expensive, and it becomes cheaper to just go into a whole new aircraft procurement program, which I see you're doing with HAL Industries, I believe, on the Tejas 2.
As far as the Jaguars that were procured by India, it was produced jointly by United Kingdom and France. During the period that you were there, was there any discussion or was there any sort of a communication to the Indian Air Force that perhaps it was time to phase this out or bring in the much needed modernization and reforms in the system itself?
Well, I wouldn't be part of that because I was an instructor. So I was teaching British and Indian students on these aircraft on the wall behind me here, the Hawk, which is a very successful platform, of course. But what tends to happen is when one country starts phasing out an aircraft, the other countries look to that country and they tend to buy the spares from the aircraft that's being phased out. So I'm sure India would have been part of that program. However, of course, India's decided to keep that aircraft flying much longer than any other country has decided to keep it on. And of course, it has upgraded for precision weapons and it has upgraded a few other things as well. But of course, it does come a time, doesn't it really, where you have to ask yourself, as the Royal Air Force Red Arrows aerobatics team who fly the Hawk T1 are also asking themselves, how long can we really keep this aircraft flying and how safe is it actually going to be?
Mr. Davis, one final question that I would like to ask you is that certain incidents that have taken place in the last few months here in India sparked another major debate with regards to phasing this off. And particularly given the fact that this aircraft was phased off in countries like UK and even places like Oman and Nigeria. And that is the reason why there is a massive debate that's going on right now. How do you really weigh in on this entire issue? And should there be a furor over this entire issue? Or would you say that we are capable to take our own decision?
Absolutely, 100%. India always has been. Most definitely. It's a friend of the British people, and any advice that we can give to you, absolutely take as you will. The thing about the Jaguar is you have some very, very talented instructors and the talented pilots on that aeroplane that are keeping the young guys alive. But any one death of a pilot is an absolute tragedy. It should never happen. And what you tend to find is the older the aircraft is flying, then of course, unfortunately, the worse this is going to become. So absolutely, I think it is about time that the Jaguar was phased out. You do have to look at what is going to replace it. You do have other very capable aircraft in the Indian Air Force, and it's a very, very capable Air Force as well. So I'm sure you will come out on top, but a serious decision will have to be made on the Jaguar. And what most countries would do is look for a replacement and then stop the flying and bring all those pilots on the Jaguar, retrain them onto the new aircraft, and then bring that new aircraft into service, which would be a lot safer and a lot more effective for the Indian Air Force.
As a child, he has experienced the jets flying around him. This is when he got passionate for machines and used to watch everything on the runway. These are the words of a grieving father, a father who's contemplating the emotion of grief with the loss of his son, and that of a proud Indian who can live in peace knowing that there are brave hearts out there protecting the people. And here we bring you the account of the family of Lieutenant Siddharth Yadav. They're yet to recover from this unfathomable loss, and they fondly share the memories that they have of the brave heart. But this also raises some very serious questions as to how exactly are we dealing with our brave hearts.
India loses yet another son in the form of Flight Lieutenant Siddharth Yadav. We are currently here in Rewari at his residence, and we are joined by his father, Mr. Sushil Yadav. Sushilji, as far as what we have understood, yours is a family who have always contributed for the country. Can you please tell us something about your family and 4 generations of contribution that you have done.
Yeah, ma'am. Actually, this is Siddharth's great-grandfather, he was in Bengal engineers, and during the British era he has served. And my father, that's his grandfather also, he was in air defense system in Para. Myself, I also served the Indian Air Force for 20 years, and now I'm serving in LIC. And my 2 nephews are also in the Air Force, the 4th generation. Siddharth was from the 4th generation. He got the commission, the first commission officer in our family, ma'am.
So how and when did Siddharth develop his passion for flying or participating in contributing for the country? Obviously it runs in the genes, but how was the passion like?
Actually, he was with me in Air Force stations. We are been part of the Air Force station, Bhoj Air Force Station, Jodhpur. So in the residential area, continuously the fighters are flying in the night and day. So the children are watching this, how the machines are flying. And he got passionate about the machines. While crossing through the runway and the sidelines, he usually was the aircrafts. So he was just passionate about the fighters.
The unfortunate incident has happened, and India, not just you, but India has lost a son. How would you want to address this, and how would you want to put forward this in front of people at large? What are your feelings right now? I'm sure you won't be able to put them in words, but if you could share something about that.
Actually, it is very painful for the father, but we are I have mentioned the generation, for the generation we are serving the army and air force. Let the people, somebody should go and serve the nation. It is definitely, ma'am, we have to secure our borders. So I have sent my son, it was his the hobby or the serve the nation. So he is gone, and it is unfortunate that we have lost him, but for the missions, he was on mission. So it's a part of his duty, and so it is painful for the father, but he was my only son. But he has lost for life for his country. That is proud for me.
So we really salute your bravery and the contributions that, in fact, your family has made over 4 generations. And I'm sure nobody is to be blamed towards this untoward incident which has happened. But would you want to speak something regarding this?
No, I will not blame anybody. We are fully operational, and we are capable of the fight with any force, any neighbors, our China or Pakistan. So we are very much capable of. But it was the incident, some bird strike was there, bird hit, and we have lost my sons due to this engine seize. So I will not blame anybody for this. Either some technical issue was there.
सिद्धार्थ यादव का नाम रहेगा। शूरवीरों में अति शूरवीर सिद्धार्थ यादव हमारे। शूरवीरों में अति शूरवीर सिद्धार्थ यादव हमारे।
लाल रंग इसका अपार, तीखा कम है फिर भी स्वाद, बेमिसाल बेमिसाल MDH कश्मीरी,
MDH कश्मीरी।
MDH